Baseball is dead.
Rest in peace. What's up?
It's a Monday. It's a Monday. It's gonna be talking some ball with the boys. You know, just a couple of the boys hanging out on a Monday. What segments are happening today, Jay? I feel like we got confused there for a second.
Don't toss that word "we" around too liberally. Yeah, it's we're doing listener questions for sure. That's kind of the heart and soul of this episode.
Yeah.
So, and then our 3 standard segments that we do every single second podcast of the week. Those will remain on the second podcast of the week. So, hello, draft, Family Feud, and hindsight. So loaded week as always.
Yeah,
that's always episode 2, bruh. Tighten it up.
I wasn't gonna be the one to tell Dallas. He was. I mean,
I thought about letting somebody else do it, and then I was like, somebody's got to step in and tell him.
I love the enthusiasm. I'll say that. He comes in on a Monday and he's like, "Oh, redraft today," and I'm like, "I'll do it." I mean, I will.
Sometimes you get a wild hair up your ass and you're ready to get to work.
Yeah,
my bad.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah,
sometimes you just gotta roll with the punches.
Hey, how'd this weekend go? Pick 'em?
Yeah. I fucking it's just super easy. I mean, when you got a little Jerry Pigskin rolling down the gridiron, it's pretty easy to make the picks.
You might be a little. Are you gonna play it?
I mean, I haven't heard the clip. So
okay, well,
yeah. So I'll be honest. I haven't heard the clip. One, and I didn't watch any of the games. Well, I do know that I'm 5-0.
So if you're unfamiliar with this cartoon, the name of the cartoon is Mr. Magoo. And Mr. Magoo,
I know Mr. Magoo
is just this painfully blind individual who walks around and seemingly avoids ill fate around every corner and just happens to nail it at the end. And that's pretty much what fucking Jerry Pigskin's pick'em session was like. Mr. Magoo stumbling backwards, falling backwards into an unscathed 5-0 as we sit today.
Yeah. And the word on the street is that 6-0 is very much on the table.
Well, it has to be, right?
What's the game? What's the game tonight?
Vikings Rams.
But yeah, who'd you pick though? Who did you take here?
I think I went Vikings, right?
Okay, well then, I think I like where you're sitting.
Yeah, I love
figuratively.
Yeah, yeah. No one wants to sit where I'm sitting right now. I'll tell you that. But yeah, here's the picks.
Texans, Chargers. Who are you going with?
To me, it feels like J.J. Watt and the boys are gonna take it down.
Yep.
I got the Texans in that one. Steelers, Ravens. Ooh, you got the old, what's his name? Flacco. You got Flacco versus Big Ben. The Steelers have limped into the playoffs.
It's true.
Put me down for the Ravens.
What about Bills, Broncos?
I mean, Bills Mafia is going to be showing up big time in this one. You got the big hands guy, Allen.
Yep.
Josh Allen, who good guy, big hands, and listen, John Elway's not walking through that door. I'll tell you that right now. So I got the Bills over the Broncos. Packers, Eagles, the old Brett Favre versus Donovan McNabb. I think in this one, it's go Pack go. Throwing picks and sending picks that's no motto to live by. You know what? I'm switching my pick. It's fly Eagles fly in this one.
There you go.
The Durs versus the Bucks. I will be going with the Commanders in this matchup. Tom Brady is not walking through that door, and it is the State Farm guy is the quarterback of the Buccaneers now. His name is Baker Mayfield. Yep. All right, there you go.
There it is.
5-0.
There it is.
I would
Durs.
argue that Tom Brady was at the game. He was actually the quarterback for the Durs.
Tom Brady
Yeah,
did
he was in
not
the
go
booth.
through those doors.
It's the new Tom Brady's JD, babe.
I got to give Joe credit because if Joseph wasn't a fan of the Commanders, they wouldn't even be on my radar. Like I wouldn't even know that they were a team. So
They're the best team right now.
Yeah, Joseph had the Durs at the forefront of my brain, which led to that pick. So if I do happen to go 6-0 tonight, then I owe a little piece of that to young Joseph.
You gonna donate to Joe's mustache's GoFundMe? Get that thing all dialed in. How are we celebrating that?
He's dialed in right now. Look at him.
Don't look dialed in? You don't like my mustache?
No, I love it.
I didn't know. I mean, you're not done, right? You're not done. You're still working on it.
Done with what?
The
I mean,
growth?
like it hasn't filled in. Like there's still more to do.
No, we're
Right.
never done.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
And you know what? I'm never done on the Underdog Fantasy app. Because people are like, oh, baseball season's over. Like, what's he gonna do? Where's his scratch gonna end up in the sports world? Oh, how about my NFL picks that never lose? How about that? I don't know. Jake, do you like winning or do you like losing?
Big fan of winning. That's why I've just been riding your NFL picks. 5-0, baby.
5-0. By the way, welcome back, Jake. I feel like I haven't seen you. I mean,
Yeah.
how was the food poisoning? Your asshole must have been begging for mercy, huh?
Oh
Yeah, it was
just
bad. Probably still the third worst asshole in the pod right now, but yeah, tough couple days for me.
Yeah, that's tough, dude. That's tough, brother.
rough spot.
Tough time to be trying to climb the asshole power rankings on this pod too.
Yeah, you're just not gonna.
Timed
you're
your
not gonna
peak badly.
Yeah. Yep.
Some serious assholes to contend with.
Yeah. But as you know, in football, every game means more during the playoffs. And you can start your own personal playoffs on Underdog, where you could cash in on touchdowns, interceptions, yards, and more. All you have to do is pick higher or lower, and you can take home up to 1,000 times your money if it gets your picks right. If you get your picks right. It's that simple. Millions of fans have already won billions of dollars making picks. Sign up on Underdog today by using the promo code Jared. That's Jared, and you'll get a free pick as part of your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. Again, that's promo code Jared, Jared. Baseball is Dead, the home of your NFL playoff analysis. And again, we need the Vikings to win tonight.
Vikings.
Yeah. I'm not worried
The
about
Vikings.
that one. Yeah, that one's going to be easy. Just like it's easy for the Blue Jays to acquire talent these days in the free agent streets. It's fucking easy. I'm not going to steal the joke, but I have to acknowledge it. I know that a bunch of people were stealing the joke. It was an easy joke to make, so I don't know who the original source of it was, but the Blue Jays signed Jeff Hoffman to a 3-year deal, but I believe it was reported afterwards that the Orioles had actually agreed to terms and then backed out after they saw the medicals. So the Blue Jays technically found a way to finish second on a player that they actually did sign, which is
funny.
It's perfect Blue Jays, brother. That's what they've been doing, but they got their man. And you got to be thinking, right? How many teams are sitting out there right now thinking 11 a year for Hoffman? We could have done that.
Oh,
I don't know.
I'm sure there's plenty of teams out there that feel like that they're in a position to do that. I mean, Hoffman, I think Hoffman still represents one of those deals where, look, is he somebody that's like, is any team really a Hoffman away from being super competitive? I don't know that there's necessarily a yes to that. What
I'll tell you, the Blue Jays are not.
Is somebody
I'll
who,
tell you, the Blue Jays are not.
What's that?
The Blue Jays are not a Hoffman away from contending. I'll tell you that.
No. So if you are even slightly competitive, sure, it's probably due in part to what he's producing, what he's bringing to the table. But if in fact you are not going to be competitive, I mean, could this just be a situation where the Blue Jays sign a guy to an affordable deal with the hopes that, hey, maybe somebody does come calling in July because we're not going to be competitive and we can move them. This is an affordable deal for somebody to digest, because it almost feels like the Blue Jays at this point are just trying to figure out what life is going to be like with or without a Vlad and Bo and company, and then go from there. Because it feels like everything else they do, every other move or player that they entertain bringing in is almost just, it's not there. There's not a full commitment behind it until they have an idea of what's going on with their boy in-house.
You think, what do you think? Let's, I don't know, want to change the subject from Hoffman, but you think that a lot of free agents, the reason why they can't get free agents has more to do with like taxes going in Canada, or like the Vladdy not having a core in the future?
I think it's a combination of the both, Joe, because guys, more so than ever these days, and we were sort of talking about it with Corbin Burns and his decision to stay close and essentially sort of reach out to a team and say, hey, I'm interested in you, because of what's going on at home, or what gives them peace of mind, what gives them comfort. And I can tell you right now, from my days of playing, traveling in and out of Canada was a bit of a grind. And that's just as a visiting player. Now, playing half of my games.
Well, you were
there,
also traveling with a 3-foot gravity bong through customs.
That's neither here nor there. The idea of getting in and out of the country week in and
smuggling
week out
is harder to do it when you're going over borders, crimes.
There's just a lot going on. And maybe guys are like, you know what? I don't want to subject my family to that. And this is sort of what I alluded to last time we talked, or maybe a couple times before, but there's a shift in power going on over there. And I don't know if that's similar to just a new president coming in like we have here. I'm not going to pretend to have my ear to the street and what's going on in the government scope with Canada, but it's a combination of the both.
I'm not here to discredit Dallas's negotiations at the border during his playing career, of course, but I think I would have to lean, if we're making this a pie chart, I'd have to lean the vast majority of the percentage to the current state of the Blue Jays, because it's not that long ago where they were signing free agents. Were they signing the Juan Sotos? No, but they were signing marquee, top of that given market's free agents. They signed George Springer. They signed Kevin Gausman. They signed Jose Berrios. Those are multiple $100 million deals.
Berrios was a trade
and extended.
Yeah,
pre-free agency. Gausman was a free agent.
Gausman was a bounce back reclamation project.
He got $100 million.
But that was after like a bounce back season.
No, okay, it was
a rolling of the dice. And George Springer.
Rolling of the dice, $100 million rolling of the dice?
Yeah, come on. That's reimagining what his San Francisco tenure was like.
But he wasn't a big
Blue Jays.
They have more $100 million free, or as many $100 million free agency recent signings as the vast majority of teams that are like not the Dodgers, basically.
Yeah, but they whiffed on a lot. And
that's
Jared's right. Like Gausman was an entirely separate, a big free age.
No,
Gausman
you guys, no. You guys are wrong. You guys are wrong.
Gausman became the guy as a Blue Jay. He was not
Gausman's walk year. He finished 6th in the Cy Young.
Yeah,
it was better than any season he has delivered with the Blue Jays. His walk year with San Francisco was an all-star season, 5 wins, lowest full season ERA of his career.
But was the Gausman sweepstakes like, holy fuck, we all need to get Gausman?
We're just moving the goal line here on this negotiation.
I'm just saying. Gausman wasn't the guy until he became a Blue Jay.
No.
Then he was a guy.
No, he was the guy when he signed the contract.
It was 1 year. It was 1 year.
The Blue Jays contract wasn't 1 year. He didn't.
No.
He finished. He had his best season, the only season where he's logged even one MVP vote in the season with the Giants. He then got the biggest contract that he's ever gotten in his career and has proceeded to deliver on that contract for the Blue Jays.
We're saying the same thing.
But the point is that why are the Blue Jays not currently being successful signing free agents? And what I said is that they have a very recent track record of signing significant free agent contracts to players that were at or near the top of those given markets in those seasons. And there's no doubt that George Springer and Kevin Gausman were those type of players in those seasons, and that's why they got the money that they did. This is much more about the fact that the Blue Jays roster is on the precipice of being in dire straits, particularly relative to the teams that they have to play against in their own division.
Well, that's another part of why the Toronto Blue Jays being a landing spot is so far down on guys' lists, and if it's even on their radars, is because the reasons that you would even have something or somewhat of representation of a foundation, those have massive question marks surrounding them. So if you are going to bring anybody in, essentially at this point, you're identifying somebody that you're bringing in to recreate a culture that is going to be non-existent, someone that's going to be starting a Toronto Blue Jay culture all over again, because you don't know if Vlad's going to be there. You have no idea what's going on with Bo. So if that's the case, then where are you bringing these guys from, and what are you bringing them to? Essentially, you're bringing them there to start it over. They're going to be the homesteaders of the Toronto Blue Jays. I don't know if you watch 1883, 1923, maybe a little Yellowstone, but right now, what we're talking about is these free agents, they're the 1883 version, all right? Go this way. This is what's waiting for you. Best of luck. There's fucking Grizzlies out there. There's Wolves. Hats off. Shoot straight.
And the Jeff Hoffman situation is kind of weird too, right? Because it's, on one hand, you can't blame a team for getting his medicals and being like, I feel uncomfortable with this situation. On the other hand, the Orioles have a pretty ridiculous track record of some pretty weird behavior as it relates to physicals and executing those deals that other teams don't operate in that way. And then Jared's point about like, I mean, or whoever said it about the Blue Jays being a Jeff Hoffman away, it sounded like Atkins said he was going to get a chance to close. So in terms of a guy who might be movable, like Jeff Hoffman goes into the closer's role, proves that he can be a quote unquote closer. Maybe that makes him more of an appealing trade asset if the Blue Jays do decide to tear it down at any point.
It's a fair point. I mean, we've definitely seen that in the past, the recent past, of signing. I mean, maybe not to a multi-year deal, but like when the Royals signed Chapman, I feel like that was like, all right, yeah, like they're paying for a nice prospect at the trade deadline,
and they got Cole Reagans, right?
Yeah,
like, in that trade.
That's what all the bullpen guys, in my opinion, and that's how as a front office, that's how you have to sort of treat this. That's how you have to treat that market. Is these are guys that I can acquire that can help me absolutely. If we are not as a team competitive, that doesn't mean that these guys suck. They could very well be throwing the ball great. We just don't have landing spots for them. We don't have important outs for them to get. So what we do have now is an out getter who's throwing the ball well, that's going to be coveted, that will land us prospects in return. So let's go ahead and sign that up.
And it also feels like inevitably one side is going to be proven quote unquote correct here, right? Because one team agreed to a 3-40, I think it was, saw his medicals and said, no, thanks. And a team in that division then stepped up and said, we will do 3-33. So it's not like they saw the medicals and was like, we'll do 1 for 7. Right. It was like, we're still going to give you $33 million, which, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I believe is the largest outlay for a relief pitcher so far this offseason. I mean, Scott will obviously top that, maybe some other people, but this is the largest so far. And that's what makes the trade element of it, or a potential future trade element, so interesting. And why I feel so conflicted about this is because on paper, he would seem like one of the best relief pitchers that you could ink up. But what is the trade value of a relief pitcher contract making more than $10 million a year on a multi-year deal? He will still have 20 whatever million dollars remaining on the deal at the trade deadline this year, if they decide to go that way. So, and above and beyond the fact that he had a ERA approaching 5 from August through the end of the season. So like, what exactly are you getting here? Like how much of an asset is he? It's just interesting in a lot of different ways.
Do any of these other 1-year deals that took place stand out to you, Jay Hay?
I mean, I guess that the Orioles did something, or added to their bullpen, which I think actually could be a significant strength for that team. I know that's
another $10 million deal.
Yeah, another $10 million deal. There seems to be something of a template for this quality of relief pitcher. But Andrew Kittredge is not going to be asked to presumably close baseball games for this team, but he adds to a bullpen that, with the return of Felix Bautista, on paper sets up as maybe one of the very best bullpens in the league. And if you're looking for a reason to be I feel like a lot of the conversation with the Orioles right now leans towards pessimistic. because of what they haven't done or who hasn't developed into an MVP candidate yet. But if you're looking for a positive route to take, I think them having one of the 3 or 4 best bullpens in baseball is their path to 90 plus wins or more wins than we think they're going to get when the season starts.
Yeah, I like that last part. More wins than maybe we anticipate, because I think there is going to be some questions that need to be answered in that starting rotation.
I mean, Kittredge is like the 4th or 5th best reliever on paper on this team, potentially. Depending on what you think of Dominguez and Cano and stuff like that, could be a real asset.
Yes.
And that rotation's going to fucking need it.
Yeah. But then also you think like, is this rotation that much worse than they've been the past few seasons?
No, when I say, and you know what, Joe, I think that's a fair question, because my assessment is that the questions that need to be answered are more so about growth instead of viability. Because I think we have seen Dean Kramer, fellow 209er at times, we have seen him go on stretches and go on runs where he's a very good major league pitcher, where he shows you, I can get outs and I can get outs consistently. And then there's times where that wanes. And I think when you couple that with health, you start to get the label, or you start to be somebody who questions annually pop up around. But I think when you start to go through that rotation, you look at the, because they just signed Chuck Moe, right? Charlie Morton, the veteran, Sugano. I mean, they have questions about whether or not these guys are going to be able to stay healthy, and then the growth factor in Grayson Rodriguez.
So I don't, to answer Joe's question in a slightly different way, it wouldn't totally shock me if the overall quality of the rotation was similar to what they received from the overall rotation last season. But I think the upside is significantly capped relative to what it could have been. Maybe never really got to last season, but could have been last season, because there's really no scenario where a Corbin Burnes season reemerges on this team. Like, I don't know what Grayson Rodriguez's like percentiles of possibilities are, but 194 and a third innings and a 2.92 ERA, which is what Corbin Burnes delivered, I think is probably off the chart for Grayson Rodriguez right now. So, like, yes, they have 5 people who on paper are probably viable major league starting pitchers, with maybe a little bit more than that with Rodriguez and Eflin, depending on which way it goes. But they have no pathway as of right now to a legitimate number 1 pitcher on this team. And given that Burnes accounted for like
think about depth.
A third of, I'm not saying it's terrible. I'm saying the upside is capped, and Burnes was a third of their rotation's value by wins above replacement last year, and he's just now gone. So somebody has to fill that, even if it's everybody filling it piecemeal. Grayson Rodriguez has got to be better. Eflin has got to be healthy, and they've got to get something out of Morton and Sugano that I'm not sure. Like, Charlie Morton could be a 0. Like, it's gonna fall out for Charlie Morton at some point. And when you sign guys on 1-year deals who are approaching 40 years old, there's a reason that they're available to you. So the margin is extremely thin, but I agree that there is, in theory, a way that this team could cobble together, the 10th best rotation in the league or something like that, like it was last year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, because like the rotation, I mean, last year with Corbin Burnes, I wouldn't say that this rotation is better than that, but 2023, when they were really good, I would say that this rotation is as good or probably better, maybe. And they were one of the best teams in the league. So that's probably their perspective. Like, we don't really need to overspend and try to get starters. It's just kind of disappointing because, they were already at that starting point with a bad rotation, won 100 games without all these guys, got new ownership, and basically are like, well, we're going to kind of piece together a sick bullpen and like kind of save money. The bullpen is, on paper, looks nasty, but it's always just disappointing with the Orioles. Just because you thought they could do more.
Well, I think what's disappointing, this is the last bit I have to say about what's going on with them right now, is there was a lot of excitement early when you had a lot of these guys showing up. I mean, Adley had just burst onto the scene and put the O's on a roll. There was a lot to talk about, them having not lost a series since he had shown up, and obviously the anticipation of Jackson Holiday, Westberg, I mean, you've got Gunnar doing what he's doing. There's so many different reasons to get excited about what the Orioles had going on. The arrival of Grayson Rodriguez and then the shift in regime. So now you have excitement surrounding the possibility and the potential of locking up this bright future that we have. So when you put all of that together and then you look at how it's gone to this point where you don't have any of what you've been looking for, that's where it becomes disappointing.
Yeah,
That's
it's like at
where
the
you
same
get
time,
frustrated.
that's why the Orioles kind of tripped me up because I'm looking at them and I'm like, this team could definitely win the AL East. But so like that's good. And that's one of the best divisions in baseball. But it still somewhat feels like a disappointment just because of the narrative around the trade and the sale and that like we have all these young guys. Like let's turn it into like let's just spend a fuck ton of money for this window specifically. And they haven't done it. They're kind of moneyballing it up a little bit still.
Well, man,
That's just reality in Baltimore.
and I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I would say like as far as the talent goes, across the game, if there was a team that I would like to see put themselves in a position, and maybe it's making financial commitments to their young stars at this point, wouldn't the Orioles be a great example of that? Aren't the Orioles like the team?
Yeah. I wonder if they've even tried.
What, to lock up some of the stars?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, sorry, now that we're on a real tangent now, and I know we've got a tight window, but why that's such an interesting side topic to me is because how do you value these guys right now so far? Like, what is the right number for Jackson Holliday? I literally have no idea. What is Adley Rutschman? Is he an MVP candidate or is he a good catcher? And I'm sure he views the situation one way, and I'm sure the Orioles coming off of last season might view it a little bit more pessimistically than they used to while still loving him. Like I've seen Jordan Westberg's name tossed out as maybe the guy who fits that sweet spot of maybe wants to secure himself some money, has proven a certain level of viability. Okay, they get Jordan Westberg under contract. That's exciting to a degree, right? Is that satiating the fan base? I don't know. So I know that's a whole separate conversation, but that the trajectory and Gunnar is obviously at a price point now where that's going to be prohibitively expensive and maybe only getting more so. But that's why it's such a interesting kind of pick'em conversation to me.
Also, like what the Royals did with Bobby Witt, and this was last year, so I mean, one less season of Bobby Witt MVP level, but pretty similar, probably. And the Royals are small as fuck, small market, and they pulled it off.
And that's to the Royals' credit, I think, because that deal now looks tremendous for them. Not that guaranteeing yourself $300 million doesn't look awesome for Bobby Witt Jr., but like they timed it. These things, it's all about timing. Like they timed it before the real MVP caliber season. He was promising before last year. He probably would have won the MVP in lots of years last season. Yeah. Like I think the Orioles, Gunnar wasn't as good as Witt was last year, but he's closer to an MVP candidate than he was pre-breakout. I think they've already missed the window on a Bobby Witt Jr. extension for Gunnar Henderson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot going in the favor of the Kansas City Royals. Not mainly Bobby Witt Jr. being the type of dude he is and being willing to hear those conversations and not want to drag it out. Meet me fairly in the middle of where I'm coming from, and we'll get this thing done. And that's exactly what happened.
I think that it's an interesting way to look at it with the Gunnar Henderson situation of, like, say you're him and you're, 5 years away from free agency? You could look at it and say, man, look at the money that Juan Soto just got. What'll the market look like for me 5 years from now? If it's at mid 700s now, are you also running the risk of teams coming back down to earth over the next 5 years and seeing what the Soto contract becomes and being like, well, that was a bad idea. Let's never do that again. And then could he be costing himself dollars by waiting, or should he be like, all right, well, if this is the standard now, like let's get something done right now?
I think teams will inevitably always look for a way to bring those dollars back down to earth, back down to what I will call a palatable level for the public. I mean, really, even for us, because it's tough just throwing around the idea of $750 million that we're handing to players these days, but that's what's going on. So, yeah, it's crazy to think, but I'm going to say this: the attack on the middle class of the player has never been more pointed, it feels like, And with that being said, the superstars of the day are still going to get theirs, right? The rich will still get richer. That's going to happen. It's going to be those folks in the middle ground who are not that elite tier that get punched in the mouth with reality instead of a paycheck.
That's
it's
why my boy
reality.
Jurgensen is still a free agent.
Jergy.
Yeah. Jurgensen
That's the middle
profile.
class right there.
Yeah. Joe also had something really interesting that went viral on,
As usual.
I believe it was Twitter. Yeah. He's a viral king.
I did.
Talking about the 2-time TJ guys. Talking about how, I mean, basically Joe said Shohei Ohtani is a full-time
Cooked.
DH.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said he's done. He
He
said he'll
is.
never pitch again.
Fuck, dude. The Dodgers should trade Shohei. If I was a Dodger right now, I'm trading Shohei or hiring lawyers to try to get out of this contract because
Yeah.
history tells you that 2-time Tommy John survivors don't survive.
Yeah, not everyone's
But
native.
do you want me to go through
say?
the thread real quick? If we want
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Because I mean, it's a two-edged sword with Shohei because it's like historically, if you look at people who get 2 Tommy Johns in MLB, now you're going back to like the 80s, 90s too. So guys who get 2 Tommy Johns historically don't come back anywhere close to as good if they come back at all. I think the stat is 25% of pitchers who got 2 Tommy Johns while in the major leagues. Their second one was while they were a major league pitcher. 25% of them never even get back to the major leagues. For starters, it's even worse. For guys at Shohei's age, like 27 to 31, it's even worse. So like his history tells you that Shohei's supposed to have is supposed to be like basically half as good of a pitcher as he's been. The saving grace for Shohei is this new surgery that they got going on.
The internal brace.
Yeah, which, I'm not an expert on it, but like that seems to be the thing that could make the difference. Like these guys who we're comparing Shohei to with the Tommy Johns, none of them had this internal brace surgery. And so hopefully this new surgery is like more effective and it means that his elbow wasn't as fucked up as some of the other guys who had to get Tommy John. Maybe if Shohei pitched 5-10 years ago, they wouldn't have even given him Tommy John because the elbow wasn't damaged enough. I have no idea because I don't know the medical lingo around it. But it is definitely concerning. I mean, you even have recent examples like Walker Buehler has been trash since coming back. It's been one season, has been bad. Hyunjin Ryu. Josh Johnson is another example, older example, where he was an ERA title winner. Had Cy Young votes, was like the next up, like this guy's going to be the ace, got a second Tommy John, and literally never pitched in MLB again. It's kind of scary. The reason why I post that thread, though, really, is that I don't think Shohei I think Shohei will still be good on the mound and be like a top level starter. I'm kind of just building up just to show people how rare that is. Kind of just another
feather in his cap.
Yeah.
Another distinguishing honor for Shohei.
Yeah, because I think people might take that for granted. Like, yeah, he's come back from Tommy John. People come back from Tommy John all the time. They're just as good. However, I think what is the difference between 2 Tommy Johns? And I don't really know the answer to that, to be honest. I have these stats going back, but I mean, Dallas, you'd probably know better. Like when you hear someone getting a second Tommy John, how much more concerned are you?
Vastly.
Yeah.
Vastly. I mean,
and how much does the new surgery change that in your head?
I am not in a position, and I don't think medically we are in a position to answer that question yet. I don't. I think we still have to see the life of these procedures and recoveries and setbacks play out before we have any sort of definitive information that we can base our judgments on. Because as of right now, this is all, I don't want to call it exploratory. And keep in mind, this is really zooming out, but there's a reason that they call it practicing medicine, is because we're not nailing shit every time, right? We're giving it a really, really good go. every time. We're giving it a really good go. So with that in mind, we still have to wait and see how this goes. You know, I mean, because right now what we are is we're the doctors who are ripping heaters in the waiting room with all the pregnant ladies and lighting their cigarettes going, this is fucking great, right? How good does this taste? You're so relaxed. Contractions, see ya. Have a fucking another. And then with 30 years later, we realize we might have fucked that up. Hand up, that may have been on us. So let's give it a while. But I think those are always things that get me excited, because I think about, like, I mean, we had a guy in our organization, St. Louis Cardinal, very famous for having like 9,000 Tommy Johns, Jason Isringhausen. I believe he's like, he might be the only dude to pitch in the big leagues with 3 TJs.
I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right. 3.
And,
He's the only guy with 3.
Like, when you really think about it, Joe, that means you've gone through every viable ligament that can do what you're asking it to do that your body has. We took the one out of your other wrist and strapped that into the elbow. You blew that one out. We took the one from behind your leg and you blew that one out. We took the other one from behind your other leg. You blew that one out. Buddy, we're done. You don't have any more. And that's where they go to cadavers, right? And that's been,
or
they're just, the fact that you survived that's like a fucking grenade going off in your elbow 3 times.
Yeah, I was doing the math. I was like, how do you even have 3? I was like, I don't know where you like take the ligament from at that point.
Johnny
They'll
Venter's
take it from the wrist, and then
Mm.
after that, they take it from behind the legs.
Yeah,
That's wild.
it's crazy. I mean, it is. I'll be honest. Like, looking into these numbers, it is concerning, because it's like, there's more closers and relievers who have come back from 2 and been as good or better and had long careers. But when it comes to starters, it really is just Nathan Eovaldi who has come back and has been better after second Tommy John. And it's not like he's been way better since the second Tommy John, but has put up like 7 seasons of better stats than his first 7 seasons. He's the only example that we found to do that as a starter.
Yeah, you might argue that if he were to have a 7-year career out of the 14-year career he's had, he might take the latter 7, right?
Yeah, Eovaldi for sure. He has, yeah, I mean, he's got, since his Tommy John, his ERA is 3.95 compared to a 4.2 it was before, and he has 13.5 WAR, which is 5.5 more WAR than he had over basically the same amount of seasons. So he's, I mean, according to WAR, he's almost like, I guess, what, 50% better?
Yeah. And
which is insanely rare and impressive.
And that's what's so crazy about all that is there's stories like that where he's the living proof or the living embodiment of, yeah, man, elbow was great. It blew out, had the surgery, blew out again. I'm as good as I was. I'm as good as I ever was. Like, sometimes it just works out that way. And then other times you blow out and you never, ever are able to knock the rust off.
And another wrinkle in that, and I wasn't even really sure how I should even look at this, but like Eovaldi got his first Tommy John when he was like 16,
High school.
and he went through college and whatever, and then got the other one when he was like 26, 27. Like, in my head, like getting 2 while you're in the major leagues, like Shohei got his at 23, his first one when he first got here, and then another one only 4 or 5 years later, both while he was in the major leagues. To me, that seems more concerning.
Now, Joe, not to put any work on you or not to raise an eyebrow, but remember, Dr. Keith Meister of the Texas Rangers, who is their team surgeon, came out with that data point at the beginning or towards the middle of last year. That fucking massive, I don't know how long that fucking report was that I read, but talking about how the human body and the tendons are not viable and not strong enough to handle what we're asking them to do. They're not mature until 26 years of age. So when you start throwing around Tommy John survivors for the second time, and we start to look at the age at which this second Tommy John might be occurring, maybe we're onto something, because now we're talking about repairing or replacing a tattered and torn ligament with a viable, untattered, unscathed ligament. And now you're asking this mature and viable body part to do something that it's ready to do, as opposed to doing something that it wasn't ready to do at 16, at 20, at 24. Now at 27 years old, the ligament of Evaldi that has not been stressed is ready for deployment. So you just fucking sort of swap them out like shoelaces.
Yeah. So I'm under that thinking that it would be better for you to get it when you're older, and that
Yes.
it would be a worse sign if you got it when you're, or at least your chances of it breaking down again are smaller.
Yeah.
The older you are.
That's been a
Interesting.
TJ tangent.
Yeah. But
I mean, it was interesting to read the thread though. Like seeing the statistics that close for at least like the 2-time guys. But to Dallas's point, I think maybe it's denial. Maybe I feel this way because it's Shohei Ohtani. But we just, with the internal, it's a different procedure. Like the internal brace is a different procedure. It's not your prototypical TJ. So, I mean, yeah, like the odds are stacked against Shohei for his age, for the number of procedures that he's had, the miles on his elbow. But at the same time, I'm like, well, we really don't know. Like this is, like Nathan Evaldi is the one success story from 2 Tommy Johns, but this is a different path that Nate took, that Shohei's currently taking. So I guess we just have to wait and see.
I also and this doesn't fly in the face of anything that Joey or Dallas just said, but I also think there's something to be said about the power of greatness too. And with all due respect to a lot of the names that were rattled off, and I know Josh Johnson looked, I remember Josh Johnson very vividly. Like he looked like
that was the real shit.
Fucking deal, man. And was the real fucking deal when he was pitching. But there was nobody to win the Cy Young Award following a Tommy John until it was done, right? And there was nobody like Justin Verlander and Jacob deGrom, and in some ways kind of reestablished on some level what could be accomplished post Tommy John for high level pitchers. And I think that if you're going to bet on someone kind of remaking the mold post 2 Tommy Johns, Shohei Ohtani would be a good candidate to do that, even if the percentages are in fact against him.
yeah, and it's also it's going to be an interesting season for Tommy John in general, because you also got DeGrom and Strider both coming back. This is both their second time as well, and are getting the internal brace thing. So, I mean, this is going to be a big season to see. Oh, yeah. If it's going to be different, like if DeGrom, Strider, and Shohei, all 3 of them come back and are as good as they were before, I mean, the whole narrative kind of switches.
Tremendous case studies.
Yeah.
Last thing before we get to the listener questions, I found it interesting that there was a report about Pete Alonso making an offer to the Mets, not the Mets making an offer to Pete Alonso.
It's always a bad sign.
Yeah. And the idea that this offer is only available to the Mets, which I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that that's true, because I do believe he wants to stay with the Mets. So maybe this special offer is only for the Mets.
Prince scam.
Yeah. I can see how it would authentically just be for the Mets.
Only for you.
But the optics of it are not great.
Calm down.
No, I'm only talking to you. What do you mean, all these other bitches? I'm only talking to you. No,
but
on.
Doesn't that sort of wave the flag and admit hey, we really don't have much going on here. So This is what we've kind of put together, and I want you to know that this is just for you.
It's like
nobody else is seeing this.
It's like that scene in Bad Santa where they're negotiating with Bernie Mac because he found out their ruse, and they get to 51-49, and he's like 50-50. He's like, all right, what's 1 more %? Right? It's like, what this feels like a capitulation for sure from the Alonso camp, and that it was released in the way that it was, where it was phrased, it's only for you, and he's now open to shorter, higher average annual deals. It's like, I don't know if it's a bad look necessarily, but it feels at least a little bit embarrassing for the Alonso side when you're talking, we want $200 million. We want the Prince Fielder. Like the Prince Fielder leak leak or whatever, the Prince Fielder nugget about that they're using that as the template, that was like 1 week ago. So we've gone from and also like who was consulting that PR move where they're like, hey, let's take the $200 million contract that was issued to a first baseman who had to like retire before the contract was over because of persistent neck issues. Like, let's use that as the one that we want to sell teams on. And it's like, what? Like Prince Fielder was unplayable / not playing by like the final 3 years of that deal. And like now that we're already on like, oh, he'd be down for a 3-100, or I think Rosenthal floated like that sort of term or something like that in the article. It's like, okay, but how far are we then from he's open to 1-35 and trying again next year? You know, like, and at some point, I actually think I'm not a huge Alonso guy, and I always
are you giving Pete Alonso $35 million a year?
I am. If I'm the Mets, hold on. If I'm the Mets and there is a 1 or 2 or maybe even 3-year term available to me, I think I am strongly considering a $30 to $35-ish million average annual value for Pete Alonso because they can afford it. It would, as we just said, it would be a short-term deal, and B, he does make them better. Like they are definitely better with Pete Alonso signed up, and they are trying to win World Series starting right now.
3-year deal, 2 vests. What needs to hit for you to keep him? That's really putting you on the spot right now. And I'm sorry that I'm doing that, but I asked that because I wonder, like, okay, if you're willing to give him that money and you do think that he makes them better, then what can you reasonably expect? Like, what do we reasonably expect over the next 3 years? And if you give Pete Alonso $30 million in the first year of a 3-year deal where he has vesting options, or he has an option to walk away, at what point does he walk away?
So this is sort of answering your question. If Pete Alonso repeats the overall quality of work that he has delivered over the last 2 seasons, which in both seasons was a 123 adjusted OPS, the numbers are different because the offensive environment was different, but about that level, I'm comfortable if I'm the Mets paying him $30 million a year over a 2 or 3 year deal. I'm not comfortable doing that in the vast majority of other cases for these teams, because I think you have to be a Pete Alonso away, or those 3 to 4 wins are extra meaningful for your team to justify paying a first baseman $30 million a year. Because at $33 million, that would be, I believe, a record-setting amount for average annual value for a first baseman. So there's probably a win here for both sides, where Pete Alonso and his camp can say, we got the highest average annual value that's ever been given to a first baseman. And the Mets or whoever can say, yes, on a 2-year deal with a vesting option or something like that. Also, by the way, just as an aside, I just got an alert from Underdog MLB per Bowman. Hoffman and the Braves had a potential deal nixed due to the physical too. So now I am officially like that, intrigued, and also now just worried, because that seems to me that it's not just the Orioles being the Orioles with their physicals. Like a second team walked away and the Blue Jays decided not to. And now if I'm the Blue Jays, I'm maybe a little bit concerned that my evaluation wasn't in line with the rest of the industry, or why wasn't it in line with the rest?
Yeah,
or did the Blue Jays say, we don't care?
We don't care. Yeah. We think he's
someone's taking our money.
We need somebody.
We're not going to have this done to us again.
Yeah. What is the worst PR situation for the Blue Jays? We signed a player that 2 teams backed out on the medicals, or we finally signed a player, but at the last minute we actually backed out because of the medicals. Like, we had him. He wanted to come here, but we said no.
Right now, this is shaping up to be the worst case scenario. The only thing left to happen, and I'm not going to say it, and I think we all understand what would be the only thing left to happen here, is for that to happen. And then them go, well, shit. And then we go, well, the other 2 teams...
If there just continues to be teams that come out and be like, oh yeah, no, we fucked her too, we just didn't want to date her. That's gonna happen too. And it's like, oh, the Blue Jays are just like, oh man, we married this one. Like, oh shit.
This was our pickup.
And I don't know if I was misinterpreting what Dallas just said, but that deal is official. The Hoffman deal is inked. So there is no backing out now.
No. I'm just saying, like what I was saying is the two teams backed out based on medicals. The only thing left to happen for this to be the worst case scenario for the Blue Jays is for Hoffman to unfortunately not be able to pitch for whatever reason.
Yep. Yeah, it's a tough look.
Yeah, a lot of tough looks today. Some listener questions. Jay Hay, woo!
All right, here we go. I dug deep on some of these, so I'll open them up. But some of these I've got ready-made answers for.
I'd fly my guy down here to do me sometimes.
That'll make sense.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. All right, excluding PED guys and Pete Rose, who is the biggest Hall of Fame snub? That's from Kaido Sukeyasu on Twitter. I would assume we're talking about not people currently on the ballot, so people who have been bypassed and are not in the Hall of Fame. Anybody have a take here?
Yeah, I do. And I don't give a fuck if you agree with me or not.
I got a take.
I don't give a fuck if anyone agrees with this take. The biggest Hall of Fame snub is Nomar Garciaparra. Because, let me explain. So I see some confused faces on this podcast. A lot of dumb people on this podcast. A lot of people that don't understand numbers. A lot of people that aren't big baseball guys, apparently. But I think I'm a big peak guy. Peak guy. Let's talk about that for a second. Because Nomar Garciaparra's peak, 1997 to 2003. Let's go up against, I don't know, let's say Derek Jeter. You know, the guy that almost got 100% of the vote except for the one person. Let's compare peaks, Nomar versus Jeter. Because Jeter, I believe, was what? 90, when did he come up? 95? 95? Nomar came up 96, Rookie of the Year 97. So we're talking side-by-side peaks. Wins above replacement. Nomar beat him. 41.1 WAR. And this is just for a 7-season sample. So if we're going to make the same argument about Dustin Pedroia, an injury ended the run and everything, same applies to Nomar. Batting average, 325, Nomar. Slugging, 557, Nomar. OPS, 929, Nomar. OPS plus, 135, Nomar. Singles, that was Jeter. He can have that. Doubles, Nomar, 270. Triples, Nomar, 44. Home runs, 169, Nomar. Total bases, 2,075. That was Nomar. RBI, 653. That was Nomar. Top 10 MVP finishes. So relative to the rest of the league, not just side by side with Jeets. That'd be 5, and that would be Nomar. Nomar Garciaparra may not be a Hall of Famer. Fine. Take it. Have it. But his peak is a Hall of Fame peak. And only injuries kept him from the Hall of Fame. It was not performance. It was not the league figuring him out. It was simply that his body could not continue when his body was able to perform. He was a Hall of Fame player.
I think that's unquestionably true. I mean, I don't dispute anything that you said here. I think it hurts his candidacy that 01 is like a giant gaping hole in the middle of his prime. Like, I think if that was a more clear or like clean cut 97 through 2003 run where he was a down ballot MVP candidate every season, it might be a little easier to wrap your head around. For me, he falls into the camp of like, he is essentially David Wright in terms of Hall of Fame candidacy. I think they have very, very similar candidacies. I wouldn't argue that strongly against somebody who was super passionate about rewarding their peaks and putting both guys in. But I think if you were to put one of them in, you would probably have to put both of them in. But I love that answer. Dallas, did you have Dallas or Joey? Because I've got a list of 4 guys that I'll run through quickly. But if you guys had something here.
Why'd fucking Coney get hosed?
David Cohn?
Fuck yeah.
Another great answer.
David Cohn. That's my fucking guy. That's the dude that I'm pissed off about getting fucking snubbed is David Cohn. A fucking legit, like, hired assassin, a legit, like, when I think about attitude and I think about the fuck you that I love to see in guys, it comes out in different ways with different guys. Like for me, like David Cone is like the white boy Pedro almost. Like, no, it's fuck you to your face. I will say it to your face. Like, let's get it. Let's absolutely get it. And I love everything that David Cone was about as a competitor. I love him even more so now as an analyst. Love talking to him, but I don't know how he is not a member of the Jacketed Brethren. I can't wrap my head around it.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's a guy who down the line gets a renewed look from whatever committee is operating in that point. Because I think the fact that he's keeping himself visible and his work is respected in the booth doesn't matter for his real Hall of Fame case, but I think we'll keep his name in the conversation. I also think I also think when the current standard of starting pitching is reevaluated, or when, CC's getting in, we'll see what sort of support Felix gets when Greinke eventually gets in. I think that's going to shed a light on David Cone's run as well, because we're talking, just one metric, but wins above replacement. He's basically CC's equivalent. There's no question that he had a Hall of Fame caliber peak. I mean, we're talking about an 11 season run where he was basically a 5-win pitcher every year, including the hardware in 1994.
Cy Young, All-Star, 5 times over, 5-time World Series champ.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot to... Yeah, 5 World Series, you would think that would be getting a little bit more attention. Maybe the hired gun element hurts him there a little bit, but probably shouldn't. Should probably only add to it. 4 guys that I wanted to run through quickly. Kenny Lofton. This is obviously something of a personal pick, but if we're talking about peak level players and criminally underrated players, more career WAR than Miggy or Ernie Banks, for example, I think Kenny Lofton belongs in the Hall of Fame. Bobby Grich, who we talked about on previous podcasts, has basically the exact same career wins above replacement as Derek Jeter. There's no ifs, ands, or buts there. It's not he has the same peak. It's not he has the same 7-year run. It's that their numbers are 71.1 to 71.3. Lou Whitaker, another guy with Grich, who is frequently cited as the answer to this question. Same wins above replacement as Johnny Bench, ahead of Reggie Jackson. And if I must pick, I do so with a little bit of a grit and bear it sort of attitude at this point with this gentleman. But we really just can't overlook what Curt Schilling's resume is as a pitcher. And it's obviously an entirely different conversation about what your behavior and how that impacts your Hall of Fame candidacy. Not one I'm here for right now, but Curt Schilling by WAR is ahead of Kershaw. He's ahead of Greinke, and he's fractionally behind Justin Verlander. I believe by wins above replacement, Baseball Reference, he is the highest ranking player who is not in any way associated with performance enhancing drugs to not be in the Hall of Fame. So he had the peak, as a reminder, 3 Cy Young runner-ups and an additional 4th place finish in his career. It was circumstantial that he never won a Cy Young. His peak was unquestionably Cy Young caliber. So I would go with Show.
That's a good answer.
Thank you.
Love the Whitaker nod.
Thank you. I got to go to Jared first on this one because I know how passionate he is on this topic. If y'all were stuck in an escape room with a current player, I'm actually wearing my escape room shirt today.
Wow.
Who are you choosing and why? That's from Jeb Mays 17. Who are you choosing?
An escape room with a player. Trying to think of who's the most cerebral. Probably Lucas Giolito. I feel like he is a cerebral guy. He has there's a such thing as too smart, where you just you don't pick up on humor. Lucas Giolito is a great balance of very smart, can break things down, but has a great sense of humor and wit about him. And I think you need all of those things in an escape room. So I'm picking Lucas Giolito.
Joey Dallas, any jump off?
I know. I never done an escape room in my life. I don't even know how it works.
Oh, that's right. You boned us on the escape room it's in Atlanta. That's right. I forgot about that.
I had to do my job, and go to the what's it called, watch party that we all planned and promoted that all the fans are going to see. Other people wanted to do puzzles.
Isn't
well, I mean, our jobs were cracking that escape room, and job well done.
Nailed it.
Didn't Dylan Cease just design a Frisbee golf course? Am I off there? Or is that Spencer Strider?
He might have, but not the same thing. Not the same experience.
No, you don't understand the connection here.
What's the connection?
It's the ability to put a puzzle together, because that's what you do on the golf course, whether it's Frisbee golf or
this
golf.
Is not the same skill set.
No, it's absolutely the same scenario.
Jay,
and when you're
can
talking
you step
about
in here, because this guy's
designing,
on drugs.
Designing a course. Yes, absolutely. So give me
takes a different kind of cat.
Give me Dylan
I'm an
Cease.
escape room guy. I'm not a Frisbee golf guy,
No, you're not understanding the part of the brain that you're tapping into.
I see the reach that you're going for here.
No, it's not a reach. It's
just not
connecting
reaching,
the dots. I'm correct.
Yeah. It's more like you're more like casting a line, and it's just not hooking on anything.
We would win.
Dallas hasn't done an escape
ass.
room with us, right? No. He's always too fucking cool.
Yep.
Spring training escape room.
Yeah, that's a must.
I feel like that's got to be mandatory.
That is a must. Probably in both locations. Probably get a taste of what Arizona and Florida are doing with escape rooms these days.
Definitely.
My answer, I'm going to cheat a little bit. It's a combination. I want Zach Greinke and Jazz Chisholm. Let's just get fucking weird.
But Greinke's not a player.
I know. That's why I said I was cheated. That's why.
Okay, sorry.
A little bit of a cheating. Joey, this one's specially for you. At Derby Sluggers asked, how does Joey feel about the Braves' lack of offseason moves?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like obviously disappointing because that ET wants their team. You don't want to win the offseason, and it feels like the Braves are totally losing it because they have signed absolutely nobody, and on paper have gotten worse because you don't have Max Fried, you let Darno go, Charlie Morton's not there, Soler, like these guys who they seem like they're kind of letting go because they want to save money, which I think to Braves fans feels like, what the fuck? Like, let's spend. We are in a great position to like compete, and let's like put the gas on the fucking pedal to the metal, baby. But I think what you got to realize with the Braves is with all these signings that they did, like earlier in their contracts, like you got to take that into account. Like if you didn't have sign Ozzy Albies when you did, or Matt Olson, give him that extension. Who else? Arcia's another guy. Like all these guys would have been free agents right now. So like there's a lot of dudes the Braves signed the past 3 or 4 years who right now would have been free agents. And if you would have brought them in this offseason, then you would have thought, oh, the Braves had done a great job. They've signed all these guys. They're building on their team. It's just that we signed them earlier, probably got them for cheaper because of it. And now you're kind of seeing the consequences of those deals. It's like, you're not going to be able to have all these free agent signings that look good on paper. We kind of already made them years prior. So that's the way I look at the lack of signing. I do think they still do want to get another outfielder and another pitcher, starting pitcher, for the team to actually feel full.
What is the best and worst perfect game? That's from MXN Wolverine. If anybody has any
leading,
if anybody has any subjective thoughts about this, about experiences watching perfect games, otherwise, well, I'll tee it up this way: the best by game score is a tie between Sandy Koufax's and Matt Cain's, 101 each. Randy Johnson with 100 comes in at third. The worst by game score is Addy Joss. My personal pick for worst would be John Montgomery Ward, however, who for the Providence Grays back on June 17th, 1880, one of the lower game scores, 92.
They count that one?
They do count that one. Why I would rank it last, it was number 2. So Lee Richmond for the Worcesters. It's the name. I'm not kidding. That was the name of the team.
That's the best name that we could come up with. This is why Worcester gets no respect. This is why Worcester gets no respect, and they don't deserve any, is because They're sitting around being like, guys, what do we name the team? We're the Worcester what?
How about the Worcesters?
How about the Worcester Worcesters? I love it. I love it. Let's do it.
Print them. Yeah, he would. So John Montgomery Ward would be my vote for the worst. He did it against a team that went 24, 58, and 3. His opponent made 7 errors, and it was in 1880, so it was loosely baseball. My vote for best subjectively is, of course, Mr. Dallas Braden's, with a close runner-up, Mark Burley. That's probably, those are my 2 favorite to rewatch. Dallas's arm going up and the Dwayne Wise catch, followed by Hawk's call at the end of Burley. Anybody else have perfect game thoughts?
That catch was fucking ridiculous.
It's the best catch ever. It's the best catch
ever, J.A. fucking ever.
It's like the only catch that I actually care about. If we're really coming right down to it, it's like the only catch that I seek out on a yearly basis and rewatch it all the time.
When I hear best catches ever in the game of baseball, I think of 2 catches. I think of the Gary Matthews Jr. catch up above and fucking on the other side of his fucking head over center field wall. That's stupid. No human being should even be able to get into that position. And the Dwayne Wise play. It's just absurd that he gets to that ball in the situation. It's
and
crazy.
The ball comes out. The ball hangs there like it's.
Yeah, and fucking boom, boom. Oh God.
I just like, I know there are like the Gary Matthews Jr., for example, is a more physically spectacular display of skill or athleticism or whatever. And the Dwayne Wise, if you're ranking it on that, is, somewhere in whatever. But the context, man, like that, the perfect game was saved because he did that is just, I literally can't watch it enough.
Well, wasn't he brought in for defensive purposes too?
He was a defensive replacement. Yep.
He was brought in as a defensive replacement. So this is why you're in the game. In case a ball gets hit out here, I need you to do whatever you can to catch this fucking thing.
And you're the only fucking person in the building who can make this play, and you were in there and got it done. The BID Core 5, Rocket, DB, J-Hay, Joe, Jake, the whole crew, get to run the White Sox organization for 10 years. Can you get the organization 1 championship in that 10-year span? That's from Ray_Love.
We've got multiple postseason appearances.
We ain't winning a title for sure.
I have a question. Is it just us, or is it like you guys are in charge and you can also hire people?
I would assume we get to hire people.
Okay. Then if it's just us, I would still feel like somewhat like confident that like maybe we could get there, but like I need, like, if we're going to do it, we're going to need some scouting.
I need 20 years. I need 20.
Well, we're talking about the White Sox here, and I think specifically we are talking about what's equal. What does the playing field look like? Like, what are we spending? Are we spending on average?
Half of this time getting the team back to sea level.
I know.
You're spending half of the window just getting back to even.
I had us get into the postseason a couple times.
Dude, so if it takes 5 years to get back to a playoff team, which I think is a very fair assessment of where this team is, then you have 5 chances to win the World Series in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're never going to be that, no matter how good we are. And I love
did it.
The Cubs did it. How many years of not winning? How many years of not winning?
Just went from fucking worst to first.
Yeah, but like we're just talking smart people. Like Theo got there in 2012 and they won by 2016. Like
and
that's what we're talking about here.
And the Astros did it as well. Yep.
Wow. Yeah, so how do you guys want to do this? You want to go complete tear down and just fucking throw in the towel for the next 3 years?
It's already completely torn down.
Yeah. No, I mean us collectively. Like we are selling everything.
There's
we are
nothing
selling
left to
everybody.
Sell. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I guess they got Robert, but all right. So that's the group is more positive on that than I am.
They do have Bobby Dahlbeck, who
They do.
Yeah.
They do. Speaking of Bobby Dahlbeck, what current professional baseball player has the highest trade value? That's from @Mr. J Benz. I got 4 names I want to throw at you guys.
Connor Henderson.
He's one of them. Not a free agent until after this all matters, right? Because we're all on the same page that Ohtani is the best player in baseball. It just got proven out that there are X number of teams that are going to be immediately out of the mix in a trade for Ohtani. So that has to matter here. trade value. Gunnar Henderson, free
Ronald
agent.
Acuna Jr.
So that's interesting. That's interesting. I didn't have him on my list.
Yeah, I
he
think
probably belongs.
if we're talking years of control, WAR versus dollars allocated, I would imagine he'd have to be on that list.
So he is signed up through. I don't know this off the top of my head, actually. He is signed. He has
29.
club options through 2028 at a preposterous $17 million a season.
Paul Skeens.
Paul Skeens is on my list. Yep.
He's got to be.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yep.
You can
He's
throw,
gotta
you
be
can throw his
number one.
rotation mate on that list.
No.
No, you don't. Have
Not
to
on
do
this. If the list is 30 deep. Bobby Witt Jr., I think, still belongs on the list, even with the contract. I think that is
What?
proof. Yes.
that. Lower.
I think he's lower than Skeens and Gunnar, but I think he belongs on any sort of top 5. And the other name I'd throw out there is Ellie De La Cruz, who is under team control through 2029. Is
So
probably
there's
not.
tiers to this.
Yeah. I mean, I think Gunnar and Skeens are the
What about Corbin
the
Carroll?
best answers.
Absolutely.
I think he belongs in the conversation for sure. If he was in a top 10, he would make my top 10.
But don't you think Shohei's still number one after
No.
all those guys, just because of all the money he brings the team? And like, I know he has 700 million, but it looks like right now, if you believe that they made 120 million off the field before he even pitched in one season.
Well, no, because like, what are you gonna like to take? Let's just say there's another Frank McCourt situation. Dodgers have to sell. They've got, and if they're gonna sell, they've got to get the payroll down. Like that's going to be the top priority in trading Shohei Ohtani is get the money off the books. And if you're getting $700 million off the books, then like what can you honestly expect the return to be? Like with these other guys like Gunnar, like you're going to get a fucking generational haul if the Orioles were like Gunnar Henderson's available. I'm like, okay.
Because you're involving 29 other teams in that bidding, basically.
Yeah.
In
Yes.
theory, in this exercise.
Yeah, theoretically. Yeah.
But
Or
I mean,
20 or whatever it is. Yeah.
if you believe, which is a number that I've heard as rumors through certain sources, I think it was actually AJ Przinsky who said it. So maybe not the best source, but
Oh, wow.
a pretty good source.
Mhm.
That he said that his number was that the Dodgers, his source said the Dodgers made 120 million off the field from Shohei in one season. So that's basically some teams' TV deals, I believe. 120 fucking million. Like, how many prospects would you give up to get 120 million dollars in your fucking bank account because your player, who is also the best player alive, is on your team?
And that all makes sense. But it was one season ago where teams didn't have to give up any prospects and all they had to do was pay money. And the bidding involved like 4 teams for Shohei Ohtani. So like, that's the thing here. Like, is Cleveland trading for Shohei Ohtani? Are the Royals trading for Shohei Ohtani in this regard? Like, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is here, but it is interesting because he's the best player and he's the most lucrative single asset in the game. But he also costs an amount of money that is equal to some of the franchise valuations for some of these teams, probably.
It's true. Could be a risk.
Yeah.
It's just after you see Soto, it just looks like such an
I know.
insanely good deal.
Is Dansby
does.
on your list?
Dansby
No.
Swanson, no.
Would you put Tatis on your list?
Yes. I mean, sub all of the guys that we have named in the core grouping, but I think he would be I think he'd be behind Corbin Carroll because of the money owed,
Mhm.
but I think Tatis would be in a larger conversation here, given his age. He's not like some of these other $300 million deals where you're getting the entirety of the prime, and probably even on the length of his deal, you're not getting that much decline in theory. Dallas and Jared have bobbleheads of memorable moments from their careers. Jay, hey, Joey, and Jake, what would you want your bobbleheads to commemorate? That's from Strike One. I feel like I know Jake's answer, right?
I would do either me with a wiffle ball bat at the Dinger Derby, or I would do a double bobblehead with me and Dennis Drinkwater sitting behind home plate.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I
That's
thought
a
we were
good
going to do
pick.
Section 10 night there, but those are good answers.
Those are great picks.
Yeah. Joey?
I guess it would just be
Probably like
You
a
know-
bobblehead of you on your laptop while me and Jay and Jake are winning the fucking escape room in the background.
yeah, that was yeah. That was a good move by me. That was really smart. Who wants to waste their time doing a stupid fucking puzzle
Wow.
and missing the playoffs? Right? When your whole job is to like be into baseball and watch baseball. Like, actually, no, I like puzzles better. Is wrestling on TV? Isn't there a Monday Night Raw on tonight? That's what Jared says. Every time you hang out with him when we're watching baseball, he goes, wait, can we pull up a second screen? I think there's a big wrestling match. He really likes wrestling more. He doesn't even like baseball.
That's funny.
So that would be my bobblehead, me, but like in wrestling gear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joe
Yeah,
in a
cool
singlet.
costume. Yeah.
Joe in a singlet.
The year is
Luchador
2005.
mask.
The year is 2005, so 20 years ago for those bad at math.
Mhm.
Pick one of each of the following to build your franchise around. One pitcher, one infielder, one outfielder, and one manager. That's from Bobbert Rudin. I did some...
Wait, what would your bobblehead be, Jay?
Oh, I'd probably do a bobblehead of me hunched over at the 2011 World Series, first World Series I ever got to go to, doing research in 25-degree weather while I can't feel my fingers. That's where it all started. That's how I would commemorate my career and trajectory. It'd be hunched over. You could barely see my face.
It'd be Jay Hay holding his hands up like this during the spelling bee, being like, I don't get it.
I don't want to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. Jay
Why
Hay,
did I pick that word? I don't know.
Jay Hay sliding his resignation papers across the desk with the spelling bee going on in the background.
Jay Hay out in front of a Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh God, for the donkeys or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. I remember going there to produce that, and the internet just didn't work. It was like, just take a train out to Brooklyn or however the hell we got out there. And Pete's like, it just doesn't work. It's just not going to work. It's like, okay, so what do I do?
All right.
Good stuff. I think the spelling bee was Mr. or what was, they still do, what's the one where they found Marty Mush? The one where you find the talent.
Oh,
talent.
Barstool Idol. Yeah.
Barstool Idol.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
Mhm.
One pitcher, one infielder, one outfielder, one manager. At the time is 2005. So that's the key element here. You're in the moment. Whose career are you taking in that moment moving forward? And they have to be in the league at the time. So you can't like take Trout, for example. Even if you're all seeing. I tossed it. Here's some names I tossed out. I did a little research. Infielder. I think the answer comes down to probably Albert Pujols or Miguel Cabrera. Depending on the exact shape of the production, I think I'd probably go Pujols, but it's pretty close. For pitcher, I think there are 4 or 5 viable candidates. For me, it was Roy Halladay or Felix Hernandez.
I was going to go Felix.
Yep. I think either one of those is CC's also in the mix, I think. But I think for me, given peak value, it would be Halladay or Felix. You don't get Halladay's peak Toronto years, but you get everything after that. And I think that's maybe high enough to warrant it, or you get basically all of Felix's peak. And then outfielder, I think, is easily the hardest question of this group because for all the great players, most of them at the time really didn't end up being outfielders. But my pick is going to be Carlos Beltran because I know he delivers a Hall of Fame career, and you get almost basically all of his peak and meat of his career. A few other candidates like Matt Holliday, Curtis Granderson. Like if you want to try Sizemore again, he comes up in certain spots. But those would be my picks, and of course, I'm going to take Terry Francona as the manager. Any other thoughts there?
I would take Verlander as my pitcher. That was his rookie year, 2005. That's who I would take as pitcher.
I was thinking about, we were a couple years after the MVP season for Miggy, for Tejada. And then outfield.
How is Kershaw not in the discussion?
Was Kershaw there in 2005?
Kershaw
He did not debut until 08.
Yeah.
So he's not eligible.
Like one of the, I always talk about this with this reporter. She did a anonymous around the league if this player already from what you've seen was going to have a Hall of Fame career, who would it be? And this was in 2010, and Clayton Kershaw was my unequivocal pick.
It's a good
Said,
pick.
Kershaw, hands down. Really? Said, yeah, that dude is absolutely fucking nasty.
To take people back to this moment in time from 2005 to 2009, so the 5-season period following this question, the top 10 batters were Pujols, Utley, A-Rod, Sizemore, David Wright, Joe Mauer, Teixeira, Beltran, Chipper Jones, and Ichiro. And the top 5 pitchers were Sabathia, Halladay, Johan, Roy Oswalt, and Javier Vasquez. That's in the 5-year period.
Give me
immediately
Johan.
following here. So
Sorry, Felix. Give me Johan.
well, the problem with that, and why because I immediately went to Johan's page, you
Yeah.
don't get 04, which isn't necessarily a deal breaker, but is like, given
Well,
how
it matters.
tight his peak was, really does kind of matter.
You'd like that window,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah, you'd like to get everything that Johan delivered, and unfortunately, you would be missing probably very likely his best season, and one of his Cy Young. So anyway, any lingering thoughts there before we move on?
I think that I think Verlander is the correct answer. If that's his rookie year, you get his entire career. I feel like you got to go Verlander there.
There you go. So Verlander.
Francona is also the correct answer.
Yep. And I think
Give me Jim.
I think,
Give me Jim Leland.
I would go Pujols over Miggy.
I think so too.
And then outfield, I would probably take Bobby Dahlbeck.
Bobby Dahlbeck, that's a good one.
Mhm.
Get out ahead of the game.
Mhm.
Which team that made the postseason last year do you think is most likely to miss it this year? That's from McKay-DB.
Why does that feel like a Family Feud question?
We have done that question for Family Feud, a version of it. Very
Hmm.
astute, Jared.
Most likely. I mean, I think the easy, obvious answer,
The guards?
no, is definitely the Tigers.
No,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
Step
But
back.
After they signed Breggy Salsa?
I'm not sold. I think he's a Red Sox.
Oh, come on.
But I don't know. I feel
Come
like, I don't
on.
know. But Tigers just seems like it's not even a fair answer.
You're yanking my chain here, Joe.
You okay, Dallas?
Yeah, I just watched my neighbor's tree just get fucking blown right out of the ground.
What?
Damn.
Wow. Like it blew over and I was like, damn, I've never seen it bend. And then I saw the fucking root bend and she was like,
Damn, man.
oh, that's a problem.
I bet Jeff Passan's out there underneath that bitch.
Yeah, he's having fucking PTSD right now.
Dallas still recording too. That's
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah, so Dallas, Jared's going with the guards.
I don't think that's the wisest choice. I don't think that's the wisest choice because you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and say the Royals had a fluke ass season. I'm gonna say that right now. I'm gonna say that them fluky ass Royals is what I'm about to say. So I think that they ain't gonna make it.
Wow,
in
That
Jared
is strong.
Jared getting out ahead of that Royals hate for the 2025.
Yeah, you know
season.
what? If they, you know what? If they got problem with me, I got problem with you. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Oh, it sounds like this is pointed. It sounds like you have a problem with one
Oh,
individual.
Oh, I see.
It sounds like there's some beef.
Nah, it ain't like that.
No, it feels like it's like that.
Nah, it ain't like that. You don't even know. You don't even know. So
Is that how he talks? What is
No,
going
it's
on?
not.
no.
No.
It is how Blake Snell talks, but there's no
it is.
correlation.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go outside of the AL Central because I can't decide which of the AL Central teams is the right answer. I'm going Pods.
Padres.
I'm going Padres.
Tumultuous offseason so far.
Yeah, I think it's now if they get Sasaki, maybe it's a different question, but I think they're in a very precarious situation with the Dodgers being locked in at number 1 and 2 direct division rivals that aren't the Dodgers also getting better. And the margin between these teams not being tremendously large to begin with. I'm not even sure the Padres were better than the Diamondbacks last year. So they could also easily make the playoffs, but I think they are at real risk here if we're trying to look outside of the mediocre AL Central.
Wait, did Dallas pick one?
I was the Tigers with Joe.
Oh, you guys are dumb as fuck. They're gonna
Wow.
sign Breggy Salsa, and they're gonna be playing October baseball. Book it.
So this is a question that I'm not even sure we're going to agree with, but it presumes some things, but I'm interested to see whether you guys agree or disagree. How does MLB fix free agency? It's boring and they're losing out. That's from @7bacons. Do you agree with the premise?
A little bit. Like the winter meetings have lived up to the hype. Like the winter meetings have delivered in recent years, I feel. But
I always balk at stuff like this because what you're essentially doing is almost you're asking and demanding that business be handled in a finite window. And business just doesn't work that way because things develop. And what your response might be is, well, yeah. And if you know that you've got 90 days to get business done, well, then business is going to develop. And maybe around day 88, 89, shit starts to get really interesting because things develop. And now last minute decisions have to get made and it's crunch time. And so what are you after? What about
is
the
opening day?
offseason?
Is opening day not the finite closing of the window? Like to some extent, like there is a timestamp on it where you have to get it done. I know not everyone does that. It's very rare that you would go into a season without a big name free agent having signed their deal. But guys want to sign before spring training. Why not just make it? I'm not even saying it has to be, December 15th. Like give them ample time, but also put a date on it.
Well, you know what's funny too is hasn't the track record of these late signings and the late arrivals to these destinations for these players, hasn't that sort of proven that you get off to a bit of a rough start? It's not as easy of a landing as you would like it to be. And so when you talk about paying a guy for a 5 year, 7 year stretch, do you really want to just take the first half of the first year of his employment and fucking torch it because you didn't bring him in until March and he had to take a while to get ready and blah, blah, blah. Like, you don't want to go that route. And I think fans don't want to see that either. So I can understand if you want to try to find a way to eliminate that. I understand. I get that.
What happens in other sports that have these deadlines? Like what happens if I'm a player and I've received no offers? I just can't play that year?
So I'm glad you brought up other sports because this is why I've always hemmed and hawed on this. And I've never been convinced that this is actually a problem for baseball, because what ends up happening in the two other sports that matter for this conversation is that the vast majority of players who matter get signed in a very, very condensed period. And it's very exciting and things are flying and deals are agreed to before the proper deadline or the proper start of these periods or whatever. And it's all leaks and then everything's over. And I'm not convinced that that's actually what's best for baseball, because I don't know that baseball free agency is ever actually going to capture a 5-day window or a 3-day window to make it worth the sacrifice of this trickle effect, where I do think having baseball in the conversation over the course of the entire offseason is arguably a better thing for the sport than having everything done at the winter meetings and then nobody saying dick about baseball from mid-December until pitchers and catchers report in mid-February. That's 2 months of nothing. And right now we have stuff, and sometimes it's big fish and sometimes it's not. But like, I think keeping baseball in the national conversation, if I had to choose, is better than, for this sport, is better than the NBA version where everything is over in basically 48 hours.
And I think that's important because this is a sport that as a player and as a consumer, you are taught that you got to ride the wave, right? There's going to be ebbs and flows to this thing. It's going to be peaks and valleys that's going to pop up all throughout this long season. And so if you can sort of brace yourself for that, to your point about being a constant in the national conversation, you're never talked about so much that it's ad nauseum and people just are tired of it. And you're never so far off the radar that people forget about you. You can exist in that great place where when that moment in time during the year where it's just baseball and you are the center stage, that's great. When big names are moving around and guys are being traded, that's great too. But I think it's emblematic of a sport. And I think that there's a symbiotic relationship there between the fans, the consumers, the players, and in general, how other sports operate.
I know baseball is a self-loathing. Baseball fans are self-loathing. The sport is self-loathing. But I think if we step back and review off-season free agency trades and the trade deadline, so the two major hubs of transactions, baseball is doing those two things the best out of any major sport. Nobody gives a shit about the NFL trade deadline. Nobody ever move. People very rarely move who end up mattering in any way, or the people who do matter are players that are not fundamentally names that people recognize, right? They're trenches or other supporting cast guys. And in the NBA, the trade deadline is almost always a massive letdown relative to the names that are floated prior to those trade deadlines. So like baseballs are the best, even if baseball fans don't like to admit that. That would be my take.
Yeah. And doesn't it feel like the free agency era in those other two sports, we're talking about players who can absolutely move the needle and for sure heavily shift the trajectory of their team just by their sole presence, by
in
their
the NBA,
arrival.
for sure. Yes.
And in
in
baseball, that doesn't happen, right? Like we're not crowning the Mets the World Series champions because they have Juan Soto. Now, that conversation is different when you start to move some of the talent in the NBA around and you put a guy like Giannis somewhere, you're going, well, okay, well, shit changes now. They very well could be in the conversation just because he's there.
Last question. If you could see any two teams in MLB history face off in a best of 7, who would it be? That's from Chris Doherty 10.
I like
Do we
that
have to
question.
go National American League?
Didn't say so.
No.
Because you could do a best of 7 in a CS. So
Well, just give me the 119 win Mariners and give me the 98 Yankees.
98 Yankees.
good answer.
As far as baseball that we have all watched, that would be.
Give me the 2018 Red Sox versus the 27 Yankees.
I'm gonna get the Atlanta Braves in 1995 versus the Atlanta Braves 2021.
I like that. I mean, the 04 Sox versus the 18 Sox would be pretty crazy.
What something about like the NL West? Like I want to see a 2012 Giants against the 2024 Dodgers.
I think the Dodgers take care of those fuckers.
Fucking Matt Cain, Tim Lincecum, Jonathan.
Yeah, I saw
Isn't Justin Verlander older than Tim Lincecum?
I was
Yes.
about to say that. I saw that.
Yeah.
On the, yeah. Crazy.
I think I would answer this question maybe differently every single time that it was asked, but my answer today is going to be replay of the 1996 ALDS between the Orioles and Cleveland because the 95 team made the World Series. And I think you could argue credibly that that was the best team of that era, but I think you could also argue that it was possibly the 1996 team who scored 952 runs and was the first season where Jim Thome, Albert Bell, and Manny Ramirez were all operating at something like their respective peaks. And, you know, that to me, I'd love a redo on that season for that team because that offense was breathtaking. And they were a much better team than that Orioles team, but their pitching staff was just not acceptable for an offensive that like, sorry, this is now my own personal thing, but like that team had one starting pitcher with an ERA below 3.5. One. Oral was 4.25. Blackjack McDowell was 5 point. Blackjack McDowell made 30 starts with a 5.11 ERA for a 99 win team. 99. Dennis Martinez was 1,000 years old and made 20 starts. It's just Charles Nagy was there.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Oral, Blackjack, and Dennis Martinez combined to make
Is it-
83 starts that season for that team.
That-
83.
That might be as functionally bad as a rotation can be while winning 99 games.
It really makes me feel good in a way, because I was in 96, I was 11 years old. And I remember thinking, these starting pitchers are just not good enough. And like,
And you were right.
I go back and look and I'm like, actually, it's a little bit worse than I remembered. It's actually worse. Anyway, so that would be my answer. And those were listener questions.
All right. We'll be back on Thursday. For
We doing the draft?
Yeah, I heard we're doing the draft that
Sun
day.
Draft, Family Feud as well. Don't forget.
Yeah.
What year?
Don't forget, the draft order is, I believe, Jared. Is it Jared
No.
goes first? No.
No. That's
Never is.
completely
Never is.
incorrect.
You're drafting last again, I believe, but you get the
Mhm.
turn. You get the
Yeah.
Snake
the
draft.
snake draft. Yep.
Wait,
Yep.
so what's-
1992 Major
Okay.
League Baseball draft. Redraft.
That's
on
good. Joey
Thursday.
can't claim we didn't tell him this time.
Mhm. 92, Joe.
see what happens when you do your job and you inform
92.
Who are you speaking to right now?
all of you guys combined.
Who are you speaking to? What is the draft order?
I
Joey's
thought it
first.
was. I
Joe.
thought it was like Joey,
Joe,
me,
J.A.,
Yeah,
me,
okay.
you, Jared.
So yeah, we got a snake draft, and then I get to go first this time,
That's right.
Yep.
You got boned.
Yep.
Yeah.
as usual. I got last time. I thought I did pretty good, but
You got voted last.
I got.
Do we
voted
know the
last.
results of the last draft?
Yeah, I
won,
think you
brother.
won.
Fucking sorry about it.
Doesn't seem quite right. Is that true?
That's true.
Yeah,
Doesn't
Yeah, you-
doesn't it seem off?
you got to
Doesn't-
get back to ass kissing in there, Havens. Sounds like you got some cheeks to pucker up to.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What's going on? Oh,
Yeah.
Jay's
I
gonna
mean-
go offline right now and go
No.
beat the shit out of a bunch of fucking.
I mean, I think
Minions.
what we see. I think what we see happening is that your guys' slander of the Discord is actually working, because there's no
Either that,
justification.
it's an
Justin
inside
Verlander
job.
wins the draft. It's just over after that. So
No, it's
to have
an
not
inside
won the
job.
draft,
Jay Hayes like, you got to throw this one. They're on
Yeah.
to us.
they're going to
They're
quit the
onto us.
segment because they're
Yeah.
a bunch of crybabies.
Yeah,
You see what happens?
They think
This-
that you're
this
just
is
going
the
to vote for
scene
me every time.
unfolding.
You got to vote
They're
for
a bunch
Dallas.
of they're a bunch of loose butt crybabies.
Yeah,
I just don't
Jay.
see how you trade Dallas Braden. No offense, but for fucking, I don't even remember who I traded you for.
Gio
but
Gonzalez
for-
and Jared Weaver.
for
I
Jared
got
Weaver,
blo-
a first round pick and a second round pick. I get for Dallas fucking
You got
Braden.
last,
no offense,
Joey.
and got
I
last
got
place.
blocked. I got blocked for a trade for myself.
No, you made an offer. It was just a bad one.
Yeah, it was not the best offer. It was actually it was the worst offer. Actually, my offer
Yeah.
was better than yours. You
Yeah,
offered
your offer sucked.
absolute dreck. You offered like Kurt Suzuki after blowing him.
Yeah.
I'm just
You're
trying
like,
to create a little value.
He's like, man, what a great teammate that guy was. Also available, very available. Anybody want to trade for Kurt Suzuki?
Can't wait to get rid of him.
Walk on.
Yeah.
He walked on. He was a walk on. He was a walk on.
I honestly might sit out the next one. I'm a game time decision. You're gonna have to call me and I'll decide.
You're the
But, like,
first pick.
It's
You're
just
the
the
first
fact that
overall
I mean
pick.
I
Your
pulled
team
off the best
sucked.
move. I pulled off the best draft move by far ever and get last place. Like
I pulled off the best move by acquiring Dallas.
obviously it sounds like you're right because you got third and I got last.
Mm-hmm.
Jared Weaver and Gio Gonzalez just don't have the sex pull that they used to. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dallas just has more street cred right now. You gotta be able to see that.
and I think that's correct.
I agree.
Yeah.
I haven't
doesn't
heard
give me
anything from
any-
Gio Gonzalez's podcast.
He's
No.
injury prone. He's not giving me the innings I want. And he's
Dallas?
a problem. Dallas is a problem off the field too.
That's true. That's true. We heard about the Canadian border stuff.
Yeah.
Come on.
False.
Guy
Guys, like
loves
nobody wants to
strip
sign in
clubs.
Canada because all they do is hassle you with your drugs.
Yeah, he's coming after he's coming after the manager on the team playing.
Yeah.
Nightmare.
The guy
None of
is a
these are
nightmare.
true. This is all a legend.
Yeah. This is all legend.
Me and Cat Williams. This is all a legend.
Yeah. Well, he's in my org now. And
You're going to get him on the right path.
yeah, I speak Dallas. I know how to get him on the right path.
You're the anti Bob Guerin.
Yeah, there's guys that can connect with Dallas. Me. There's guys that can't get through to Dallas, and that's Bob Guerin.
And their jobs end up being cut because of it.
And they never recover.
Never
Honestly.
recover. Nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Floundering his way to another World Series championship.
End up as
Yeah.
the third assistant bench coach.
Yeah. Yeah. Once Dallas gets you fired, that's it. That's it, brother. You better find a new field to perform in. So, Jake, book Bob Guerin. I think it's about time we hear the other side of the story.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm surprised we haven't brought up booking him before.
Well, I think what we're going to do is when we go to spring training, we'll be able to track down. I don't know that the line or the list is very long for
That's
media
actually,
requests.
you know what? That's a good point. I'm going to get on the horn with Peggy right here after this recording and
Yep.
put Bob Guerin on the list.
Please. Please.
And I
do.
will note that he has never been with us before.
Nope.
Yeah, make sure you let him know it's with me.
Yeah.
It's with the podcast fronted by a couple of dudes and Dallas Braden, your best buddy.
Your best buddy. Yeah. I mean, he has to know to an extent at some point that,
That you stabbed him in the back.
yeah, that
I mean,
you got him
the
fired.
knife is still sticking out. So he walks around with it. So I'm sure he still knows.
Yeah.
We
Just to
made
remember-
amends.
Mm.
Just to, that's an admission of its own, right? That there
Right.
was something to make amends for.
Right. Exactly.
No,
and that
I
you were
just-
the person who wronged
Yeah, Dallas.
There's-
Wow, he
there's
stumbled
no-
in. Too
No.
focused on that tree out there.
Mm-hmm.
Just admitted to the
It's
Bob
wild.
Guerin truth.
Yep. Yep. All right. All that coming up on Thursday. Joseph, apparently it's up in the air whether or not he's going to participate in the 1992 MLB redraft.
If he doesn't come, maybe Guerin subs in since he'll be on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Joe, I hope you change your mind.
Of course.
Yeah, the draft
Well.
the draft isn't the same without you.
I haven't been treated fairly by the voters.
Brother, you want to be talking about treated fairly?
Yeah.
I'm
Joe.
right there with you, Joey. Just absolutely robbed again last
Unbelievable.
week.
Unbelievable.
I did all I could do. I mean,
Apparently, all it took
I fucking drafted 5 players and still couldn't win.
all it took was a high dollar podcaster and a former Major League Baseball player to browbeat the poor Discord people into voting some other way other than me. That's real classy, guys. Yeah.
Wow.
Just
I
glad
just
they're
come
finally starting to figure shit out.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna redouble efforts at PR in Discord.
Wow.
I'm gonna be
Yeah,
all up
for-
in there today.
For the people
Making
that
threats.
say abuse and physical abuse is not the way. Well, let me tell you right now, the only thing that physical abuse ever solved was 2 world wars.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Some other skirmishes, but just saying, sometimes you got to
Bullying.
do what you got to do.
Bullying
But-
works.
Well, or you can listen to Celine Dion and say Lerv conquers all.
Wow.
Learn.
Shout out to Canada. Yeah, it's appropriate that Canada goes out with a win today. After all
I'm
the
making Dallas hurt
beating.
Oh, so fucking bad.
All right. Goodbye.
Uh,
We'll see you Thursday.
Oh my God.